Greetings. My name is John Peterson. I'm the Executive Director of School Administrators of South Dakota. We're in Chamberlain, South Dakota today for a school law seminar. It's April 23rd, and we have approximately 70 school administrators here that are attending a session put on by Rodney Freeman. Rodney's our guest here today for this 10-minute podcast. Rodney and I go back a long ways. As Rodney jokingly said today that some things have changed, some things haven't, but for guys like Rodney and I, our eyes have changed. We need glasses, and I guess the hair's thinning, and there's some things with our body have changed, but there's a lot of other things that haven't. And so with that said, Rodney, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you, John.
Rodney is a long-time attorney in South Dakota. I believe Rodney started in 1974. His practice primarily centers around school law. He works with many school districts. I know in the 4 districts that I worked in as a school superintendent, Rodney was always our attorney, and I valued his expertise and his knowledge. It was interesting. This morning I said that this session was kind of a necessary evil. And that's a little bit strong, but it's reality. When I look back on the association that administrators and attorneys had 30 years ago was minimal compared to today. And I'm sure you find that, Rodney. Your phone rings much more than it did 30 years ago in regards to, well, Rodney, what do I do now? So with that said, Rodney, talk to us a little bit about what are the changes since you started out in school law?
Well, I think one of the biggest things, John, is the awareness of that people, teachers, staff, children, certainly parents, the awareness that these groups now have of their rights.
Yeah.
And their expectations are, of course, greatly increased over what they used to be. But I think it's just people are more knowledgeable now. They know where to turn to get answers and advice, and they're not afraid to challenge the traditional authority figures.
Yeah, I think it's definitely true. Again, I go back to my experience as Rodney, and I think that people were much more accepting and much more tolerant, and believed that schools were doing good things. And not that they don't think they're doing good things now, but I think they want to be more involved in the process.
Absolutely.
And they're much more aware of their rights. Rodney, one part of your job that I never envied, and that is you do a lot of negotiating. I
Yes.
mean, you go out to school districts and do the actual negotiating. What's going on this year? We had a tough year. What's going on in negotiations?
The first thing I've noticed is the teachers are much more realistic about what to expect. I think boards and particularly superintendents have done just a bang-up job the last 2 or 3 years letting teachers know the economic situation facing the district, and not only that district but the legislature. And consequently, I think teachers have become much more realistic. As an example, I haven't seen a teacher association yet come in asking for more than 3% increase. And in this day and age, that may seem a lot, but compared to what we had even 3 or 4 years ago, when a teacher group's initial offer is 3%, it's mind-boggling. And I think that's the educational process that the administration has largely done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Rodney, here today, you're talking about recent legislation, 121, 1046, Senate Bill 104, Senate Bill 18, harassment and bullying, complaints and grievances. For our audience out there, and keep in mind this is a wide variety of people that listens to us. Talk to us a little bit about harassment and bullying. What are some of the issues, and what advice do you have for administrators and I guess parents in regards to harassment and bullying?
Well, harassment and bullying, my advice to school districts is have a policy, promulgate that policy so that the public and your staff is aware of the policy, and then follow the policy.
Yeah.
And take it seriously, because with the advancement in technology, bullying is no longer shoving on the playground.
Okay.
With the cell phones, and texting, and the computers, it can follow you forever
Mhm.
and has dire consequences. And I believe, and the courts believe, that schools have an absolute obligation to address it and to take it seriously. And in a similar vein, and this would be my message to parents and students, if you have a concern that your child is being bullied or harassed, schools can't address it if you don't bring it to our attention. You've got to bring it to our attention.
Cell phones, Rodney.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, I forgot to turn that off.
That's
But,
okay.
but parents need to bring it to the school's attention. The
Yeah.
school cannot address it and attempt to correct it if we don't know about it.
You know, Rodney, another area that you addressed just before lunch here was complaints, and it's interesting. And there again, I think that with people being more concerned, I think that and more involved, naturally there's more complaints that we deal with. What advice do you have for schools in regards to handling complaints?
Well, the public has to understand, and I'm speaking about parental complaints.
Mm-hmm.
or a member of the public that has a complaint. And obviously, we have to address them, a board does.
Yes.
But in a similar vein, we have to protect our employees as well. We can't take anonymous complaints. And if there's a complaint, let's say, about a teacher's performance or how a child is being treated, and the parent complains, that teacher has rights too. That teacher has rights to present his or her side of the story. So a board is really in a unique position. They're almost acting as a judge. And frequently they will hear two competing sides of a story. And then the board acts as any judge would and tries to determine which is most credible and what is the best way to address the complaint and protect employees as well.
And you talked a little bit before lunch about formal and informal complaints that board members. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, to me, a board is elected to
Yes.
listen to the people who elect them.
Right.
But they have an obligation to protect their employees and their students.
Right.
To me, there is a big difference than having a legitimate complaint about the performance of a teacher and the complaint that might occur after the football game where we ought to fire the coach. I think districts should have policies that distinguish between listening to a complaint, not for taking action, but simply to have the patron be able to express an opinion, which I would call an informal.
Yes.
And then the formal complaint where the patron wants you to actually take action.
Yeah. And I certainly agree with that, Rodney, because board members, I think, have a responsibility to hear out concerns about their school district. But then they also have a responsibility that if that person wants something done, if they want something corrected, then they have to go through the formal process. But if they want, and I've found that a lot of people just want to be heard. I mean, I want you to understand my concern. So that certainly makes sense. Well, this is a 10-minute podcast, and we're running out of time. But I certainly respect and appreciate the assistance you've given schools through the years, Rodney. And we, as school administrators, appreciate you coming out and putting on this seminar. So keep doing what you do so well.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
Appreciate it.